Right. So they're not done with Russiagate. They're not done with Russiagate. So let me read you this headline over here. Okay. This is from Al Jazeera. They're saying U.S. report says Russia tried to influence the 2020 election. And look at here. It says U.S. intelligence agencies also found attempts by Iran, Venezuela, and Hezbollah to meddle in the presidential election. Amazing, right? Amazing. So the assessment was made in a 15-page report into election interference published by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence on Tuesday. Okay, so we're going to go straight to the report. By the way, you know who the Director of National Intelligence is now, right? It's another war criminal that we've covered. She used to serve under Obama. She was deputy director of the CIA. Her name is Avril Haines. Now she's the Director of National Intelligence. The first woman, by the way, right? So now you have a woman warmonger. and yeah, you know, she helped with the drone program. So, you know, she's a great person. But don't worry, because, you know, she's into erotica, and she bought a bar and turned it into something I can't remember. Something quaint. Go read the piece about her, which tries to, you know, whitewash her. So let's go straight to the report. Here it is. Okay. It's very interesting, huh? Now, one thing I will add, by the way, we'll get to that in a second about the Director of National Intelligence, but let's just take a look here. So their definition, okay, of what constitutes election interference. They say, for the purpose of this assessment, election interference includes overt and covert efforts by foreign governments or actors acting as agents of or on behalf of foreign governments intended to affect directly or indirectly a U.S. election, including candidates, political parties, voters or their preferences, or political processes. Okay, so election interference is a subset of election influence activities targeted at the technical aspects of the election, including voter registration, casting and counting ballots, or reporting results. And this is, of course, a declassified version of a classified document. They gave this one to Biden as soon as he took office in January. And I love how right off the bat, key judgment number one, we have no indications that any foreign actor attempted to alter any technical aspect of the voting process in the 2020 U.S. elections, including voter registration, casting ballots, vote tabulation, or reporting results. So, you know, what they're saying here essentially is that, yeah, Russia, again, just list the axis of evil, right? As George Bush said. So, you know, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, even Hezbollah this time. And I told you Syria, they're going to put Syria in that list sometime. It's coming. I guarantee you. They're saying Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, Hezbollah, they all tried to interfere in the election, but not by actually hacking voting machines or something. That didn't happen. The way they interfered, according to this report, they tried to influence people, right? So let's look at what they actually mean with that, okay? Let's look at what they actually mean with that. Now, when it comes to Russia, okay, they're saying that we assess President Putin and the Russian state authorized and conducted influence operations against the 2020 U.S. presidential election aimed at denigrating President Biden and the Democratic Party, supporting former President Trump, undermining public confidence in the electoral process, and exacerbating socio-political divisions in the U.S. Unlike in 2016, we did not see persistent Russian cyber efforts to gain access to election infrastructure. Really? Like, do you have any proof of that at all for 2016? I'd love to see that. I really would. I'm still, you know, waiting for that one. And of course, they do this WikiLeaks smear where they say, oh, look, the Russians hacked you know, these Podesta emails, and then they gave those to WikiLeaks, which is nonsense. They just made that up to, you know, push Russiagate, to justify, or rather cover for Hillary's shortcomings and also persecute Assange. So they're saying here, okay, that basically they're just saying the the Russians, okay? They're saying that their strategy was to use their people linked to Russian intelligence to launder influential narratives, including misleading or unsubstantiated allegations against President Biden. What does that mean exactly? Because when we had the Hunter Biden scandal, you know, with his business dealings in Ukraine, his business dealings in China, they all called that Russian disinformation. You remember that? The entire mainstream media apparatus, they were all saying, oh, this is Putin. This is Putin. Even though Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden never denied the documents are real. I mean, if someone comes out and publishes a lie about you, okay, like let's say, for argument's sake, that the New York Post were lying and that they lied about Joe Biden, about Hunter Biden, saying that he has business dealings in Ukraine and China. If someone lies about you, isn't the first thing you would do, you know, you would come out and say it's not true, it's a lie? They never did that. And despite that, despite the authenticity of those documents, every mainstream media outlet decried them as Russian disinformation. What? Who brought Russia into this? Where does this come from? What is that? If anyone was trying to influence the outcome of the U.S. election, it's the mainstream media. It's the Silicon Valley companies. They locked the New York Post Twitter account and stopped them from tweeting because of that article. Right? They put this warning label underneath. Oh, it's hacked materials. They tried to discredit a story that was real. Why? To protect one of the candidates. That's election interference inside the U.S. You need to worry about the media. You need to worry about Silicon Valley. You need to worry about those motherfuckers. Okay? Who are doing it overtly, like right there out in the open, and then saying it's Russia. What are you talking about? And then, of course, you know, let's get to Iran. I think this is the funniest one. Okay, this was. Let's get to Iran. So they say here that we assess with high confidence that Iran carried out an influence campaign during the 2020 U.S. election season intended to undercut the re-election prospects of former President Trump and to further its long-standing objectives of exacerbating divisions in the U.S., creating confusion and undermining the legitimacy of U.S. elections and institutions. We did not identify Iran engaging in any election interference activities as defined in this assessment. So they're saying here, okay, that Iran's election influence efforts were primarily focused on sowing discord in the US and exacerbating social tensions, including by creating or amplifying social media content that criticized former President Trump, probably because they believed that this advanced Iran's long-standing objectives and undercut the prospects for the former president's re-election without provoking retaliation. Hold on a second. So they're straight up saying, they're saying, you know, Iran didn't try to actually hack voting machines or something. No, they just posted critical things, or they said critical things about Trump. Yes, I would imagine that after his maximum pressure campaign, after, you know, pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal and slapping them with sanctions, and, you know, flying a drone into their airspace and assassinating General Qasem Soleimani and all of the other various affronts on Iran, yeah, they're going to be critical. What is that? How is that election interference? What does that mean? What does that mean? Hey, take a look at this. We assess that Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei probably, they're not even sure, authorized Iran's influence campaign, and that it was a whole of government effort, judging from the involvement of multiple Iranian government elements. We have high confidence in this assessment. Okay, so you have high confidence, but you don't have actual proof. Is that what you're saying? Because when you say probably, I have high confidence, that's speculation. It's not really proof. That's not a certainty. Iran focused its social media and propaganda on perceived vulnerabilities in the US, including the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, economic recession, and civil unrest. Everyone is doing that because it's fucking real. The United States has had the worst response to COVID-19. You have millions of people unemployed and who have no health insurance because in this, demented system, you have healthcare tied to employment. You have social unrest. Look at what happened with George Floyd. Iran did that? Iran caused all these millions of unemployed? What are they talking about? Iran botched the United States response to the COVID-19 pandemic? How was that election interference? What the fuck? And here they talk about these threatening emails. Do you remember that? In a highly targeted operation, Iranian cyber actors sent threatening spoofed emails purporting to be from the Proud Boys group to Democratic voters in multiple US states, demanding that the individuals change their party affiliation and vote to re-elect former President Trump. Okay, hold on a second. Do you remember this crap? Hold on, I had the article up for you over here. One second, I have a screenshot. I picked it out for you. Give me a second. So, yeah, here we go. Look at this. Director of National Intelligence, this is from October 2020. Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe said the U.S. intelligence community believes Iranian and Russian operatives obtained voter record information, which enabled Iran to target some people with intimidating emails based on party registration about how they'd better vote for President Trump or else. Hold on, man. Let me get this straight. Let me get this straight, man. So you're saying in one paragraph that Iran wanted to undercut President Trump's re-election prospects. And then in another paragraph, you're saying they were threatening people, pretending to be the Proud Boys and telling them to go vote for Trump. Which one is it? I mean, unless they're trying to say that Iran was trying to portray Trump supporters as being, extremely violent and harassing and trying to paint them in a bad way, I guess then it would make sense. But why would Trump's own director of national intelligence come out and talk about that then? Like if Iran is genuinely trying to help him get elected, rather undercut his efforts. I mean, this makes no sense. It's full of plot holes. And look, hold on, we're not done. Keep reading the report. Look what they want to say here. Okay. They're saying over here that they're saying that since early 2020, Iranian actors created social media accounts that targeted the United States and published over 1,000 pieces of online content on the United States. Though U.S. social media companies subsequently removed many. Tehran expanded the number of its inauthentic social media accounts to at least several thousand and boosted the activity of existing accounts, some of which dated back to 2012. Okay, let me explain that for you. I'll give you an anecdotal example. So, Press TV, for example, Google banned their YouTube accounts, everything that's related to Google services, right? Why? Because of sanctions. It says they were citing the OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, which is part of the Treasury Department, and it's because of sanctions. So you have to go and you make 10 other accounts because you know that 9 of them are going to get banned eventually and very soon. And instead of actually talking about how it's the sanctions that are basically prompting them to go and make a bunch of accounts because they keep getting deleted and banned, and not just them, by the way, it's happened to other foreign outlets, anti-imperialist ones like Telesur. They're saying, no, look, this is proof that they're trying to interfere. No, you keep deleting their accounts, and these are news organizations, and you just don't like what they're saying. That's all. But look how they twist that shit. It's hilarious, honestly. It's really hilarious. And one second, I missed one over here, but yeah, what's really unbelievable, honestly, is that if you think back to 2009, when you had these, they literally called them Twitter protests in Iran. Okay, they were saying, oh, there was election fraud, and people are taking to the streets. The U.S. State Department reached out to Twitter and told them not to do any maintenance on the website, just for the sake of keeping Twitter up, keep it running, so that Iranians could use it as a vehicle to organize protests to, overthrow the government and basically keep this social unrest going. That's election interference, like literally election interference. Not to mention, I mean, do I really need to go? How far back do you want me to go? Because we can go far back. The CIA, okay, the United States and Britain have couped Iran. They got rid of Mossadegh and put the Shah in his place to steal the oil. And they were stealing the oil before that, right? In Abadan, they built this entire refinery. It was Anglo-Persian oil company, and what is known today as BP, right? So they've interfered in Iran's politics. I mean, not interfered is an understatement. They've just straight up, couped the Iranian government and installed a puppet in his place, right? So for you to come around now and talk about this is unbelievable. And not to mention right now, I mean, I just did a report about this, 2 weeks ago. Max Blumenthal also wrote in the Grayzone about it. You had the British government, the FCO, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, which is the equivalent of the State Department in the UK. Okay, they gave millions to the BBC, to Reuters. They put up these contracts specifically asking, news outlets to go and train journalists to spew anti-Russian propaganda. Okay, so not just like posting critical pieces online. No. The British government was giving millions of pounds for this program to BBC, to Reuters, to Bellingcat, to go and recruit people and train them to spew anti-Russian propaganda. And they interfered also in the elections. I think it was in Macedonia. Yeah, and man, Max Blumenthal, he made me laugh so much. He was saying, can you imagine if you and me got parachuted into Texas to promote like some pro-Russia, pro-China candidate? We'd be locked up in a supermax prison. It's fucking true. It's fucking true. And that's how absurd it is. And it's a perfect analogy for what they were doing with Bellingcat, right? So that is a literal election interference. That's straight up, we're coming to alter the results here. We're coming to push a certain candidate. This is a joke over here. What this is, all of this. And by the way, if you go and read the part about China, they talk about how basically, again, there's no evidence of them trying to actually manipulate voter results or election results, and that they actually didn't do anything. Like it says in the part about China, they had no preference. They just didn't care if Trump or Biden won. And hold on, let me pull this up for you. It's the next one. So they say, we assess that China did not deploy interference efforts and considered but did not deploy influence efforts intended to change the outcome of the US presidential election. Really? Well, the media, that's not what the fucking media are saying. Look at these headlines. Russia, China, Iran work to undermine US election. Motherfucker, do you think people are actually going to read the article? Never mind the report. Never mind the report that we're going through right now. The average person is not going to read that. This is bullshit. This is just brainwashing, right? It's horrible, right? It's horrible. And I mean, it's unbelievable. The funniest one, honestly, that I find is about Hezbollah. I think that is just hilarious, honestly. Like, they got nothing better to do than meddle in U.S. elections. So they say over here that We assess that Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah supported efforts to undermine former President Trump in the 2020 U.S. election. Nasrallah probably saw this as a low-cost means to mitigate the risk of a regional conflict while Lebanon faces political, financial, and public health crises. What does that even mean? What does that mean? Efforts? What are these efforts? Can you answer? Also, I'm curious how when they talk about undermine, re-election efforts for President Trump. No one likes Trump. Trump is a shithead. I mean, with that statement, you could just say Rachel Maddow also, undermined efforts for Trump's re-election. Every fucking news outlet that published anything bad about Trump undermined his re-election efforts. What does that mean? Where do you draw the line? And what can you give us specifics? This is nonsense. This isn't actually any information. It's some abstract sentence that the media just take as gospel and they run with it and report it, and people swallow this shit up. And here they say Cuba as well. We assess Cuba sought to undermine former President Trump's electoral prospects by pushing anti-Republican and pro-Democrat narratives to the Latin American community. Cuban intelligence probably conducted some low-level activities in support of this effort. What does that mean, low-level activities? What does that mean? They were posting memes on a Facebook page? Like, what? Explain! Explain! Because, yeah, I'm saying that's not a joke, because back in 2016, they were also saying, like, yeah, the Russians, they were posting memes online and that swayed the election. Damn, man. I mean, if people are that dumb that a couple of memes did it, wow. Wow. And here about Venezuela, look what they say here. They say that we assess that Maduro had the intent, though probably not the capability, to try to influence public opinion in the U.S. against the former president, meaning Trump. We have no information suggesting that the current or former Venezuelan regimes were involved in attempts to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. Okay, so translation, Venezuela did not interfere in your elections. Why are they here? What is this? What is this? Do you think that stopped the media from putting Venezuela in there? No, of course not. They just report anything that the intelligence community says as fact. That's it. Just garbage. And the irony also of like, oh, it's Maduro who wanted to interfere in American in U.S. politics. Really, you don't think it's the other way around? Like these sanctions that are literally meant to oust Maduro, to get rid of him. That's not interfering, right? Starving, killing people to overthrow a government, or the fact that you had the Silver Corps coup attempt, a literal fucking coup, like this, these former, I think they were Green Berets, right? They did security for Trump at one point, and they made this mercenary group called Silver Corps, and then they tried to do a coup, the Bay of Piglets. You remember this happened last year? No? Or the fact that you have Juan Guaido being propped up by 60 countries, all at the behest of the United States. Well, a little less now because the EU doesn't recognize him anymore. But the UK and the US still do. That's not meddling. That's not interfering in the elections when you are like coming in and deciding, oh no, he's the interim president. We're going to decide for you. This guy's the interim president. We want him to take your place. Wow. I'd love to see what Venezuela's report about U.S. interference says. It's going to be a couple thousand pages long, to say the least. So, I mean, this is just a pile of fucking garbage. Wow. This is really something else. And, the thing is here. If you look at the end, okay, they say that they're talking about their language used in the report and judgments of likelihood. So the chart below approximates how judgments of likelihood correlate with percentages, okay? Unless otherwise stated, the intelligence community's judgments are not derived via statistical analysis. Phrases as we judge and we assess, and terms such as probably and likely convey an analytical assessment. So, I mean, I don't know what this even means. Is this like a disclaimer at the end where it says like, hey, if any of this turns out to be bullshit and you find out that it's bullshit, well, you can't hold us responsible because we didn't say that it's true. We said likely, and that's like an 82.5% chance. It's got nothing to do with it. What is this? You're a fucking intelligence agency. You're the director of national intelligence. This is from the office of the director of national intelligence. You oversee 18 goddamn agencies. If you are not confident in what you're saying, who the fuck is confident then? It's your job to know this stuff. Actually, it's not. Their job is to push propaganda. This has a bunch of manure. Okay. And it's conflicting. It's a bit tough, right? Because, even when they publish flat out lies, when they say things like Iraq has WMDs, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if it's true. The media will run with it. When they say that Venezuela and Hezbollah are interfering in our politics, it doesn't matter if it's true. Even in the report that they say Venezuela didn't interfere in the election, it doesn't matter. The media will report it as gospel, and people will swallow the shit up, right? What a great distraction from all of Biden's shortcomings, and that's putting it mildly, right? What a great distraction. This jingoist bullshit, this xenophobic nonsense, the hypocrisy also. Every single one of these countries on the list, the United States and the UK, by the way, they've tried to overthrow their governments. They've tried to interfere in their politics. That's their business. They do nothing else. And then they have the stones to publish crap like this. It's unbelievable. And, it is, I don't know what to say, right? If you look at, for example, a few weeks ago when they published this report, again, from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, they published this report about the Saudi journalist Khashoggi, who was chopped up in the Saudi consulate in Turkey, in Istanbul. And he used to write for the Washington Post, and he was resident in the US. I don't even know what to do here, because when you look at that report, we all know it's true. Okay, not just from the US. We're not relying on the United States to tell us it's true. We know that the guy was killed under the direction of MBS, of Mohammed bin Salman. And again, I don't know about the names mentioned in the report, because they mentioned a bunch of accomplices who worked as his personal bodyguards and so forth, and people who were implicated in the operations. I don't know if those are accurate, but there's definitely a lot of truth to that. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that one out. Who's behind that? But then they go ahead and they publish crap like this, right? It's just like the devil, man. It's just like demons, They mix truth with lies all the time. And ironically, this is, if you go and watch, this CIA officer talking about how they would lie to the media. And I don't mean just with publications. I mean, they would develop relationships with the media. They would feed them truth and then, feed them bullshit. And it's by feeding them truth, it's by giving them real stories that they would gain the trust, they would earn the trust of these journalists. And, these journalists would then always bite, and they would come back for more. And then they'd give them false stories. And sometimes even overtly, right? They would develop a relationship so casual that it was just straight up like, yeah, this is not true, but I need you to put it out, whatever. So, this is a long-standing tradition. There's nothing surprising about that. But reminded me of that scene in The Exorcist, right? There's like he's talking about how the demon is mixing truth with lies, and he says there is only one. Oh God, they're really sadistic, these people. And make no mistake, this report, this continuation of Russiagate. I made a joke. I made a joke that the only good thing is that if Biden wins, the only plus side is that we won't have to hear about Russiagate anymore. And I think Glenn is like, oh no, it's going to be there. Yeah, absolutely. And they're expanding it, right? You remember during the debates, even the presidential debates, Biden was saying, Iran, they're going to pay for interfering in our elections. And I'm going to be tough on China and Russia. Like straight, like he hasn't been elected yet, and he's already like making threats. I mean, can you imagine if you're China or you're Russia or you're Iran and you're listening to that? Like, yeah, that's sure to promote a lot of diplomacy. They're just doing this to cover for Biden, right? He lied about the checks. 12 million Americans millions of children, they got screwed over. They didn't get any relief from that. $15 minimum wage is gone. So now they're deflecting, right? It's just like Netanyahu. You look at Israel. Every time there's some bullshit going on, the guy is being investigated for corruption. He's aligning himself with these far-right groups to try and secure deals so he can form a coalition and make sure he doesn't lose. Anytime there's something bad going on internally, all of a sudden, oh, look, Hezbollah, oh, look, we distract them with some kind of problem with the Arabs. It's the same thing here, right? Anytime there's some kind of, they want to deflect from internal problems, they just start with the jingoist bullshit. They start with the xenophobia again. Yeah, the Democratic Party have become the McCarthyists. They've adopted that role gladly, and they need their ratings, right? I mean, Trump gave them a lot of good ratings. He saved a lot of them and their careers, and now they have to find other ways to continue the imperialism, the foreign intervention, the victimization, the maligning of other countries, and so they do shit like this. They just make this up, right? I'm telling you, just wait for it. They're going to put Syria next on this list of countries that allegedly interfered in American politics. Just wait for it, right? God, it never stops.